Atheist Edge. I'm Courtney here with
Carl Merritt, the liberal atheist comic.
Yeah, he's really fun. So we're here. He performed for us at the Winter Solstice party, so we're here at that. And I was so excited to meet you. I haven't ever met you before, but apparently you know a little bit about me. So
Yes, I've been YouTube stalking you for a while. I mean, it's a harsh way of putting it, but accurate.
So you said that we kind of are in agreement. So I kind of wanted to ask a little bit about where we tend to agree or maybe disagree in what you've seen so far of the content.
I would be surprised at an awful lot of structural disagreement. I think we have exactly the same view on issues of feminism, a liberal bend, and I look at it as more of a humanist bend. And I've never understood how you can be in this community and be free-thinking enough to leave religion, and yet then jump right back in and say, but I do like that king like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like we were hearing earlier in Seth's talk with Christianity Today. It's a breath of fresh air that Billy Graham's publication came out and said, if you are saying that you are following the path of Jesus, people will not take you seriously if you are following someone like Donald Trump. They also said, how can we get outraged at abortion and then go out and say, but this bent and broken man that we support for president is okay?
Right. Well, and there was a... I'm going to start quoting comedians around you. There was a comedian that was talking about that a lot of Republicans, they're against abortion, but they're for capital punishment.
Yeah.
And they're like spoken like a true fisherman, throw them back, kill them when they're bigger.
Oh, and then it got rough. Yeah.
Oh man, so I can be as offensive as you are. So yeah, but I don't know. Like from your comedy special, you do kind of have you have some snarky views a little bit.
You know, the interesting thing is, I knew that today the material that had gotten me fired in the civilian world, the God and gun stuff, was not going to be a problem today. But I was a little concerned that some of the kid-related material, that I was going to do another bit that after the kid walked behind me in the show, I thought, maybe I better not do this.
Yeah.
And it's about anti-vaxxers. And my view that there are a number of children that really shouldn't be vaccinated.
Oh no.
That they have had life too easy. That they're going to find, I don't, go ahead and say, okay, boomer, just go ahead and say it now. The line is, life is going to toss them around like a pork pack pinata at a pit bull party.
Oh.
And that I feel that in, you know, like my nephew's case, Topher, that the polio vaccine took way too much of the challenge out of him growing up.
Oh no.
You know, it's like braces on your teeth, meat braces on your legs.
Well, so yeah, the whole like concept of offensive comedy, it's having much of a moment right now of like the balance between the kind of like PC policing of things and then, you know, things being a little bit not worth saying or something like that. But there are some comedians. Do you know Daniel Sloss?
Yes.
He did a TED Talk about like quote unquote offensive comedy, and I think what you would probably agree with him on is separating the punchline of the joke from the subject of the joke, right? That like you're not making fun of polio, you're making a misdirect on a comedic misdirect on the subject.
You know, when I follow that bit up and I say people just don't think through the advantages of not vaccinating children. I mean, it means smaller classrooms for overcrowded schools. Now, do you really think that I'm suggesting that we kill children?
Exactly.
Come
yes.
on. I mean, if you really think that, you know, you're a fuckwit and you're never going to get it anyway, so
Right.
that's fine.
Yeah, and that's
I'm
an
actually
important distinction.
making fun of the anti-vaxxers,
Right.
and if you're not smart enough to see that, then, you know, that's just going to be a tragedy in your life.
Yeah. And shout out to Daniel Sloss' TED Talk about offensive comedy, also his Netflix special. He talks a lot about that subject as well. So yeah, I think there was almost kind of a big contrast between like the personal, like the personability, like personality thing of you and Seth, right? Like there's kind of a, it's almost like two different audiences, if that makes sense.
First, I just adore Seth. I think he is great. He has got such an ability to communicate. His background as a broadcaster just makes him a joy to watch. And he is hilarious.
Yes.
He has got great timing. And I was watching him and seeing comedy foundations, comedy foundational words that he would use for a setup.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah.
I tend to be a little more out there because I am in my real life a little more out there. You know, this thing I was saying about not being concerned about the atheist stuff, obviously here, but maybe the kids stuff. You would think that living in Texas, being born and raised here, that dating, I would get more problems about being a liberal in Texas or an atheist in the Bible Belt. But the biggest problem is the kid thing.
Yeah.
If you tell a single mom, if you use the phrase full-term miscarriage to describe her children, I know. Don't ask me how I know this.
Oh no.
I mean, my feeling is if I was not involved in the procreation, I do not want to be involved in the raising of this child.
Oh well, see, and it depends. Like some people are completely on board with that, and I actually, I probably shouldn't say this online, but there was a there was a Facebook post that I put on secular singles. It's like a secular group. I was watching Hassan Minhaj do an interview, and he mentioned like his like really young infant and how much he loves like spending time with her in the morning or something. And I posted a little blurb on the Facebook page, like, I can like not want any children of my own, but like be wildly attracted to like good dads, right? It's really funny.
And you know, I think that there are good dads out there, but I think that most men are more enthused about the concept of being a dad more than the day-to-day, oh gee, I just wish that I could change some more diapers. Oh, I sure wish I could do some more homework with him. You know, there are exceptions to that, but I think it's still the primary person that's going to be doing childcare is female. And that's why when I was talking to you earlier off camera, this concept that men should be involved in the decision on whether or not you carry a child to term, it's almost like a chicken and a pig going into business together. And they're going to sell ham and eggs. Well, the pig is fully committed.
Yeah.
Now, I understand the chicken has got something to do with this.
Yeah.
But I just don't see men's
It's a good metaphor.
position on this because it's
They don't have
so
as
easy.
much at stake.
They don't, societally, they don't have so much at stake if they leave.
Financially.
And financially, it is just too easy to ejaculate and evacuate.
Yeah.
That's a medical term.
Yeah, very medical. Well, and the thing too, like, at least for me, when I had that conversation with TJ, he was taking this extreme of you know, if men don't agree, then they shouldn't have to play child support, right? It's kind of an extreme view, and I do think that I wouldn't go to the other extreme that like men shouldn't have any say or anything like that, but I do think that it should be kind of recognized that there is more at stake for women than men. But I hate the idea of it being like only on one person to make that decision, only on the women. Like it's not just, you're not the only person in that equation.
See, I don't have nearly as much of a problem as you do on that because I feel like when men are going to carry a bowling ball for 9 months, when they're going to have the societal pressure to not give the child up, I mean, all the pressure is on women.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't even think men should be able to vote on abortion.
No, I don't agree with that.
See, I'll tell you.
Well,
you conservatives.
Okay. So there is kind of a concept that some people bring up of like it should only be women's vote on it, and I understand the sentiment because it's been a exclusively male vote for so long in history, right? Mm-hmm. The legal ramifications of abortion or the legal access, and so I think unfortunately until we get to a place of like women being half of the representation of the legal system or the legislative branch, then you wouldn't really have equal representation, right? And so there is something to be said for people, there needing to be more of a balance of feminine voices in that decision, for sure. But I don't know that I would make it only women to decide that. But I do think there's a lot to be said for maybe like 75% women voting and then 25% men or something.
Well, on a personal level, of course. I mean, I think that if you're with someone and there is some massive failure of birth control, as there would have to be for me, then yeah, you probably should have this discussion. But in the final analysis, this is in your body.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't want to minimize fatherhood too much, but the reason that you're pregnant is something that I have probably done into a sock at some point. So let's not make it too magical.
Right. Well, and on the other
that's
side,
a lie, of course. It wasn't
right.
Probably. I've done it.
Well, and on the other side of that, though, there are people who like seek out having children and who are very deliberate about trying to be a stepfather or trying to have children of their own, and so yeah, I think that almost sounds to me like making men sort of like faceless apes, and that's not quite accurate as well to me. I do think that we're all kind of human beings, and there's some people are more deliberate about their actions in that department than other people, and so yeah, it's a complicated issue that I don't know that we were prepared to talk about today. But
well, I think that if you want to find someone that wants to have a child with you, go out and find that person.
Right.
But to think that, oh, Courtney, I really want a child, and so now it's on you to have it for me.
Right. No. And there are
find someone that wants to have this. In fact, I don't even have a gene pool anymore. I think it's a sludge at this point. I shouldn't have another generation, but if I need to, then I need to find someone that wants to.
Yeah, and there are men who, this is the life goal that they have, and they want to have this in their life, and so they're seeking out someone who feels the same about it, and that's part of like online dating too. People will kind of put their preferences and their wishes out there so that they can kind of cast a wider net to people who will respond to their specific wants and needs. But yeah, I know women that are specifically interested in starting a family. I'm not one of those people, but I do know men who are specifically interested in starting a family as well. And so I don't think it's reserved to only women, but I do think that you have a good point about there needing to be more of a feminine voice on that subject. But when I was talking about like 25, 75, I was more talking about like the legal system of the laws around abortion, like the voting parties that decide what's going to happen to women's bodies. I do think that should at least be 75% women, and I don't think that it is.
Well, see, the thing is, I look if you change that around and started talking about what would happen if you were talking about controlling men's bodies.
Then that would be 75% men and 25%
No,
women.
but I'm saying it doesn't come up because men aren't marginally going to put up with that stuff. That's why
Right.
I'm saying it's all too one-sided.
Well, and women are kind of in a protected class too. So there's that of like they are a special category that that has not been afforded certain protections that they still aren't afforded here or anywhere in the world. So it's that's sometimes forgotten. This sort of like this kind of men's rights movement. There are things that uniquely negatively affect men in terms of gender inequality, and there's that's why campaigns like He for She are so important to recognize that and to make feminism a broader term that includes everyone, which it always has in my view. But to take away that context of women historically being sort of in need of being a protected class and becoming a protected class throughout history, and then there being this this issue of turning it on its head and making men's like the fight for men's equality equal to the fight for women's equality, almost like there's this sort of rhetoric that comes out of the men's rights that sort of makes it equal and takes away the historical context and the surrounding cultural context of the world that we live in. And yeah, to discount that is really difficult.
Well, I'm going to be one of the ones that discount men in a sweat lodge in their drum circle whining. They're a bunch of whiny little bitches to me. The patriarchy has been in full force for history.
Yeah.
And to get all whiny about things marginally changing is not for me.
Yeah. Well, and I've said this before on the channel, and yeah, there are men on the channel that would disagree with you. Chris is not included.
And I heard somebody say feminazi, and I think he was looking at me when he said it.
Oh, dear.
Which is disturbing on every level.
Well, and this is where the whole, like, you know, I don't know how serious you are when you talk. So that's when you're doing kind of a bit.
Well, I mean, clearly the gag reflex
Right.
and the daddy
Yeah.
being absent in the same way was a joke. But most of what we're talking about as far as women's rights over their own bodies,
Yeah.
I will assure you I am serious as I could possibly be.
Yeah. Well, and it's, I don't know, it's something that isn't really seen in that light a lot of the time. There's like a superseding, you know, child's rights versus female rights, and I do think that it comes down to human rights and being the freedom to live the life that you wish to live, which includes having children or not having children.
Oh, I'm all up inside anyone that wants to have kids. But again, I did not help in the procreation on this. I don't want
Chris, help.
I don't want your kid screaming at me at Chili's while I'm trying to enjoy my molten chocolate cake.
Well, okay, so I'm also a counselor, right? So I help parents and children communicate, and so in response to that sentiment, I think that I would definitely mention the importance of couples speaking on these issues before they become
Knocked up?
well, before they get involved with each other. That's kind of like you have to talk about these things if you already have children and if that's automatically part of the equation. Like I come with 3 cats and I'm a package deal with 3 cats, right? And so it's just kind of, it's something that you have to know about the other person that they're okay with that. And so I think the subject of children is even more important than animals.
Cats? Really?
But
No, you're stepping
some
up.
would disagree. I'm sorry, cat lovers. I will disagree on that. But
Cat,
for the purposes
the
of
other
this,
white meat. So-
oh no, oh god, oh, I'm in so much
and
trouble.
then it twisted into
I'm
the
in
abyss.
so much
right
trouble.
there.
Anyway, so yeah, so in conclusion, I do think that there being a healthy communication on that and not a forcible communication would be the best solution to that problem of, you know, you getting involved with someone who has children or not to your own accord, whether that's something that you're okay with or not. And if you're not interested in being a stepfather or a stepmom, then don't get involved with those kind of things, or get
You
involved
think?
in whatever way fits that relationship. And so yeah. But, well, you would think that people would think that far ahead, but you do have that difficulty. You do have, lots of kids with single moms, like, hey, this guy just hangs out. It's just like, it's a difficult thing that not everybody takes as seriously as they should.
Well, let me put it this way with me and single moms. Very early in the relationship, the conversation comes up. I do not want your children calling me daddy.
Yeah.
But if you want to, that could be kind of. So.
And on that note,
I know. Goodbye, kids.
I think that's a good one. And I will agree with you on that. I will agree with you. So, on that note, this has been Atheist Edge with the infamous Carl. Thank you so
Big
much.
Pippin with the LAC.
Here at the Winter Solstice Party. Thank you so much. And we can find you on
YouTube under Liberal Atheist Comic, or Facebook Liberal Atheist Comic.
Yes.
Lib Atheist Comic on Twitter.
Watch at your own peril.
Yeah, well, I mean, we haven't lost one yet.
At your own risk.
Come on, kids.
At your own risk, yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.